much like yesterday, before we even get into the subject of today's video, I want to address this tweet from Jack Fletch. A white straight cis male being now the face of the £50 note. Know your history, Jack. Alan Turing is pivotal to breaking the Enigma code, and he was one of the rather unfortunate people to be charged with indecency for having a sexual relationship with another man. Homosexual acts back then in the 50s were still criminal offences. Both men charged with gross indecency under Section 11 of the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885. Turing, interestingly, reserved his defence and did not argue or provide evidence against allegations, and only eventually entered a plea of guilty because of his brother and solicitor begging him to do so. Alan Turing was given a choice: imprisonment and probation. The condition of the probation meant undergoing hormonal physical changes designed to reduce his libido. Essentially, he was given injections of what was called stilboestrol, or DES, a synthetic estrogen. This was given to him over the course of a year. This rendered Turing impotent and caused breast tissue to form. He was castrated for being homosexual. In 2009, as one of the very best things Gordon Brown did as Prime Minister, he made an official, public apology for the appalling way that he was treated, and a posthumous pardon was granted by Queen Elizabeth II in 2013. A law was introduced in 2017 called the Alan Turing Law that retroactively pardoned men cautioned or convicted under historical legislation that outlawed homosexual acts. As I said, this man was pivotal in World War II. This man did some truly amazing things for this country. There was a film about him. He is legend, and as such should be remembered. The fact he is white and cis means nothing, but he really wasn't straight. You moron. Maybe I should put that in the hashtag of this video. Hashtag learn your history, Jack. Maybe I'll at this video to him so he can understand why he's such a moron. Anyway, let's move on from that and talk about incels. I know what you're all thinking. Ooh, is Meg going to attack an incel? No, I'm really not. As a word, up until the end of last year, I had actually never heard of an incel. To me it was a new word, it seemed fancy, and then upon understanding the definition, I sat back and thought, do I know any? Because it was a curiosity. In reality, I don't actually care if somebody is involuntarily celibate or not. I don't care if you're voluntarily celibate. I don't care about your sex life. I don't care if people want to make videos then documenting reasons why incels could have a better life if they made simple changes to their behaviour. I don't care about the subreddits that exist that showcase some of the worst qualities within those that identify as incel, that essentially amount to people blaming everyone else for their own failings. It's just funny. I don't have to care about it, but it's still funny. I don't really care, ultimately, because it is a personal matter. Once put in the public space, of course, I have every right to mock it. And I think there are times when the word incel can be used as a way to have a joke, as opposed to using it as an insult, which is where I normally see it. I don't really care for that. So let's take this article from The Telegraph, My Life as a British Incel and How I Removed Myself from the Misogynistic Movement. The first part of it that caught my attention was a reference to men's rights activists, which I think to be quite unfair, in the sense that the article is framing it that incels are men's rights activists, or that all men's rights activists, because they haven't exclusively ruled it out, it does set up that particular straw man, that all men's rights activists are incels. So to read from the article, before he went on a shooting spree in 2014, killing 6 and injuring 14, Elliot Rodger emailed a 140-page manifesto to his friends, family and therapist. The 107,000-word diatribe entitled My Twisted World detailed his hatred for women and desire to terrorize them, and was circulated alongside a YouTube video in which he said, "Girls are not sexually attracted to me. There is a problem with that. That's a problem that I intend to rectify." The attack propelled incels, a portmanteau for involuntary celibates, from hostile online forums devoted to men's rights, into mainstream consciousness. Did it? Because honestly, it was so little talked about, I'd only really heard of it last year. Either I live a very insulated life, or it really wasn't something that cropped up as often as people like to think. Until very recently. It's mostly young men who feel rejected by women and society more generally, who takes the internet to voice their anger and desire for revenge. Well, on every platform ever to exist anywhere ever, there is always going to be some form of extremism. And the internet is one of those very few places where you can insulate the real you and portray someone else to feel more accepted. I'm not condoning what they have done, those that have partaken in extremist actions because of their own failings. I am, however, pointing out that there is no way you would ever have a place anywhere, including the internet, where some form of extremism did not exist. Under a broad definition, incels include anyone who is sexually inactive, not by volition, but the most heavily publicized element is the discourse around violence to take revenge because they're not having sex and feel entitled to sex. Yeah, they exist, but they're not the only people who feel like they're entitled to sex. They're just the worst aspect of an incel. I would also believe, and like to believe, they are a minority within those that are also incel, much like those who blame everyone for their own failings. Let's not forget here, and you are trying to frame this as incels being all like that. There are just those who just can't get laid. There are those who just can't get a person to share their life with. And then there are those who are, while involuntarily celibate, content with what they have. I feel like I have to point this out because the way the article frames this just feels a bit too absolute for me. A friend of mine, Carullius Valentinius, tweeted out something about incels and how it's being used as an insult. I'm going to link the tweet. As far as I'm concerned, his rant on it is good. On Sunday, a new BBC Three documentary will examine aspects of inceldom. There's Catfish Man, an American who poses online as a male model before humiliating his date and filming the reaction. Just wow. Not gonna lie though, I'm trying to record this with a straight face because part of me sees the funny side. Of course, I would never want to do that to somebody else. Nor would I want anyone to go through that if they're being led to believe that they are going out with a particular type of person. It does show that there are people around who will go out of their way to lie, cheat and manipulate to get what they want. In this case, Catfish Man wanted to get his rocks off to humiliating somebody who thought they were going on a date with somebody else. Matt, a handsome but socially awkward New Yorker who laments we're not all rampant misogynists, we're not all Elliot Rodger's worshippers. Elliot Rodgers is the minority in this, by the way. And there's James, a 31-year-old British incel from County Down, with a history of social anxiety, paranoia and depression. He identifies as KHHV, which I had never heard of until I saw this article, which is incel shorthand for kiss less, handhold less, hug less, virgin. Because of the listed mental health concerns James has, I can understand why he would be unable to perform any of the activities listed as KHHV, which by the way just sounds like a radio station to me. Just going to put it out there. Depression, anxiety, I can relate to. Not the paranoia, but as our mental health system improves, hopefully people like James will be able to get to a point where those issues are reduced greatly, because I'm sure he has his own motivations for not wanting to share his life with someone. However, there are options available should he in the future feel in a better place to the point where he would want to share his life with someone. In the article, James references how he did get sucked into online communities, and he fell within echo chambers, but this did not improve his chances because the conditions, while being right for him to become involved in the movement, weren't right for him to invest in a relationship with someone. He himself also stating that he felt like he was entitled to sex at one point in his life, like the world owed him something and therefore he should get it. Now, the article also says something I do really dislike, where it says recoiling from the outside onto the world online is how many sucked into the murky forums that facilitate the more nefarious aspects of inceldom. While some function as web communities for those seeking solace, like my Discord server, become a patron. Others are more extreme, calling for sanctioned rape, for example, or state-sponsored girlfriends. I have seen the state-sponsored girlfriend comment, I've seen that. Not the sexual assault, but I have seen the state-sponsored girlfriend part. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I would point out, you said some function as communities, others are more extreme. Please be honest enough to say they are a minority. It is intellectually dishonest to say it the way you have, which makes it look like it's a 50-50.